Hey, we're two Star Wars nerds, and in this video we're going to talk about 3 animated Star Wars shows and if they are over or underrated. So first, let's start with Rebels. Overrated, underrated.
I think Rebels is honestly underrated because I didn't even hear anything about it when it was live and going on.
It was Disney XD too. It's kind of a weird choice.
Yeah, I never knew anything about it. And then when we started watching it a couple years ago, I was like, why didn't no one tell me? Like, it's not perfect, but it was very entertaining and I enjoyed it. And I was like, I don't understand why no one told me about this show.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say underrated, and I don't know if that's just because I'm under a rock and didn't know, and I'm the only one. But yeah, we've watched it multiple times, and I enjoy it. It's entertaining. It's good. Like I said, it's not perfect, but I think most Star Wars fans would enjoy it.
Yeah, even given my more recent dislike of Disney Star Wars as a whole, I do like Rebels. Mm-hmm. So I would also say underrated, because I think most people, when they think of Rebels, here's the thing: you start in season 1 and it is a little childish. I'm totally okay with that. It does sit a little bit differently, but once you get into it, it matures, and I think it adds a lot. There are 2 things that I don't know where I land. Like World Between Worlds and Bendu. Those are the 2 where it starts getting into kind of the weird. I mean, the weird's always been there. Right. In Star Wars, but it starts getting into
and they weren't really fleshed out, and you're like, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, but I think that gets into a whole bigger topic of Filoni and what he wants to do and stuff. Right. But I think as a whole, they're underrated. Yeah. And there's some really cool nods to a lot of stuff that's worth looking into. Mm-hmm. But the second animated show, Resistance, Star Wars Resistance, overrated, underrated.
I didn't hate this show. Actually, I was surprised. We watched 2 seasons.
Yeah, 2 seasons.
We watched it all. I mean, we made it through, so that means something. Especially with the era.
Such a low bar, though. Like, we made it through.
If we don't like something, we don't watch it.
True.
That's why we haven't watched any of the new stuff, because we're not interested. But we did finish the show, and for the era that it's set in, it's the best thing from the era, I think. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
From like the sequel era. It's the best thing out of the sequel era, I think. Again, I didn't know about it. No one told me about it. So you were just like, oh, there's this Star Wars show. And we watched it, and again, I was entertained. But I haven't seen anyone else talk about it, or I haven't seen anyone hype it up. I don't think it's overrated at all. I
don't think you can overrate Resistance.
Yeah. And I don't know that's necessarily underrated, but I think it's more underrated than overrated. I'm not saying I loved the show or I want it on DVD, but you don't really hear about it.
For me, to be fair, I don't recommend anybody watches it. I don't think it's that good as a whole. But I will say I think it's underrated. Here's the thing. I don't like sequels.
Shocker.
I think it's underrated for making the sequels a little bit better. Before you grab your pitchforks and decide to burn me at the stake, I still don't like it, but it makes the First Order and Phasma a little bit better.
Yeah.
But the show as a whole, it actually rips something. I think it's ripping something off out of the EU.
Oh, with Lando.
Yeah, Lando has, if you've seen Resistance and you know what the show's all about, Lando has something similar. And so I'm fairly positive that that's what's going on. So I think it's underrated if you like that stuff. But I think
that doesn't mean we love it.
Yeah, but that's just to be fair.
Yep.
But the last thing here is The Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars.
The Clone Wars. There's the Clone Wars 2003 micro series. not that. That's extremely underrated.
Yeah.
But Clone Wars, the TV show. The Clone Wars.
I think out of all the shows that we're looking at, that is the most well-known. But I wouldn't say it was overrated. Especially when we talk to people about it, they're like, isn't that a cartoon? You guys want to watch it? And we're like, it's actually really good, and it fills in so much gaps. So I would say while it has more people watching it and it's more known, widespread, I still think it's way underrated because it makes the prequels so much better, and I already loved the prequels. So
yeah, and you know,
underrated. So all of them I said are underrated.
Yeah. You said all of them are underrated.
Okay.
For me, I love the Clone Wars, and what's interesting is there's like a whole side of the fandom, specifically kind of like hardcore EU people that really dislike it, really dislike it, but they were already like invested in another canon Clone Wars timeline, and then this one also canon.
Yeah, I understand that.
Didn't fit, but this video is not even about that. But
that'll be another video.
For the Clone Wars, I think it's underrated because there's people I know that haven't, like you said, haven't watched it, and when they start watching it, they're like, wow, there's like a lot of content here.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people are like, well, it's a kid's show, you know, and it's like, it's brutal. But I like it, and I even like some different theories that are out there that it was like propaganda, basically. Yeah. So, anyway, I don't want to get it too far into that. That'll be a whole another video. We actually have planned eventually versus the Clone Wars and the Clone Wars Multimedia Project. So it's... Anyway. But let us know what you think about Rebels, Resistance, and the Clone Wars. Overrated, underrated. Basically, all the animated shows are underrated. Even if you don't like them, like Resistance, they're all underrated. But with that, we are two Star Wars nerds, and may the Force be with you
always.
always.